anything else, but not. Great. Good evening. I call this meeting of the Gloucester Community Preservation Committee to order at 6 p.m. on Tuesday, August 29th, 2023. In accordance with state open meeting law, this meeting has been posted as a Zoom meeting and will be recorded by video and audio and will be conducted by remote participation. If you are calling in on a phone, you can press *9 to request to speak. If you're watching on a computer or a device, there is a raise hand button in the Zoom app that you can tap or press to request to speak. Please use either of these options to be recognized. Committee members in attendance tonight include Bill Cuff, Carrie McKenna, Mark Poulin, Rob Gullah, Jane Remsen, Harry Hoaglander, and myself, Matt Lundberg. Not present this evening are Jennifer Lee Levitz and Bob Whitmarsh. Both may join later, and if they do, I will recognize them at that time. All right. With that, we'll proceed to our first item on tonight's agenda, which is to review and approve the minutes from our last meeting, which took place on August 1st. Anybody have any comments on them? I read and I have none, other than they seem to be really complete and accurate to me. Anybody else?
No, I thought they were well done, Matt. I didn't see anything that needed to be corrected.
I got to say, I thought they were organized so nicely, project to project. That was new this year, and I thought it was very nice and easy to read. So good job, Zoe.
Yep. Ditto. Thanks, Zoe. All right. Then do I hear a motion to accept the minutes?
I make a motion to accept the minutes of our last meeting of August 1st, 2023.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any comments? Not all in favor. Roll call vote. Bill.
Yes.
Mark.
Abstain, I was not there.
Rob.
Abstaining as well.
Jane.
Yes.
Carrie.
Yes.
Harry.
Yes.
Matt, yes. Motion to accept minutes passes 7 with, or 6 rather, with 2 abstentions. All right, on to our next item of the agenda to continue our discussions on 2023 applications. I had said in my email for the agenda that we'll proceed as we did at our last meeting to review where we left off and go through each of our applications that are here and have any discussions, consider any other new information that came in. And we do have a little bit of information on a couple of them. And I think that kind of covers it. So I'm going to share my screen again with the spreadsheet that we have covering these. So bear with me and I'll throw that up. Just 1 minute.
And Matt, I just want to mention while you're bringing it up, I don't believe Rob and Mark were here at the last meeting. So as we get into each one, any questions or concerns they have, why don't the two of you speak up? And
Absolutely. Even with any questions at all.
Yeah, thank you. I actually watched the entire video and took a whole bunch of notes. So I'm ready to go.
Great.
Now you said, Matt, pick up where you left off. Did you get through all of them, or you mean just redo and start from the beginning again? Is that what?
So at our last meeting, we went through all 14
Okay, all right.
active applications and assigned draft award amounts to them that we didn't vote on those amounts, but there seemed to be some consensus around them. Yeah, so when I say pick up where we left off, just to consider the spreadsheet again. And if we, any of us feel that those award numbers should be any different, to discuss any possible adjustments to them. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okie doke. The new information to consider on a couple of these applications we'll bring up as we get to them, but I would suggest we just proceed from the top down. And before we do, the one thing I wanted to note is if I was just scroll so you can see the bottom of this. From Kenny Costa at our last meeting, our available funds to consider for award this year are just over $1 million, $1,048,173. The number just above it on the spreadsheet is the sum of all of the award amounts that we put in above it. And then the surplus number below it is just the subtraction of those two amounts. So at our first pass, we are considering recommending $973,000 in grants, which would leave $74,000 in the general CPC fund. Those grants include, on line 15 here, our 10% allocation that we are required by the statute to award to open space or recreation projects. All of the projects that we have applications for are in either housing or historic. All right, that's my preamble. With that, we can start in at the top. So the first one on the list is 14. Actually, before I proceed, any comments from the committee in general, not on any specific application?
So I have one, and that was on the surplus. And so last year we had a reserve, but it wasn't a reserve because there were no applications, right?
Yes, we actually, well, flip over to that. I didn't have it listed the same way on the 2022 stuff, so.
But yeah, I don't remember us, we had projects in all the categories.
We did not award all of the available funds that we had. I think we left about $300,000 in the fund
Okay.
after our awards. I think that was the number, but I'll have to go back and look.
I thought it was 100 and something, 120.
Yeah.
No, I might have it handy, Matt.
Okay, no, it doesn't matter. It's just, I just thinking like, there are no open space and recreation projects. So yeah, that's interesting this year.
I have a quick question, and again, I apologize for my lack of knowledge on this, but the 10% reserve required by CPA statute, hasn't that happened for the 2 years I've been here, we've had to give that 10% up, correct?
Well, not last year we had several projects that were in recreation. I've just flipped over to 2022. Can you guys see that?
Yeah, I see it now.
Yeah, so we had quite a few projects that we easily passed the 10% minimum.
I guess my question really was, what happens with the 10% this year? Where does that go? It just stays in stasis, or because nobody obviously is going to use it, it just stays in the bank here?
Right, that's a good question. So what happens is the city, the monies stay in the bank, if you will. The city manages the funds that they have in different accounts, not a physical bank account, but different categories that they put that money in. When we get money from tax collections locally, or when the state gives us our matching funds, they all go into a CPC general fund.
Okay.
And then when we make these recommendations and the city council approves them, Kenny Costa then moves, let's say that the award was made to match this 973. He then creates project specific accounts for all of the specific projects that we've awarded to. Since there is no project specific projects for open space or recreation, that goes into the CPC open space and recreation account.
So that could be used for an off-cycle project or something?
It could be used for an off-cycle project. That's correct. So that's a good question, Rob. So put it another way, if this recommendation was taken, we actually would have 114 plus 74 that was unawarded. 114 would be allocated and could only be awarded to an open space or rec project. The 74 could go anywhere.
Got it. Thank you.
So if we had like 2 years in a row of that, you could have you could build up quite a kitty for that, I guess.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, some towns, and Harry, I see your hand up, but I'll get to you in a second. When I was on the CPC in Acton, for several years, we put more than 10% into the open space account because we had a project in mind to acquire some open space that we weren't going to be ready to do for a few years.
Right.
And some people, some towns, particularly ones that prioritize open space, do that a lot.
Land's expensive too, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, Harry.
Yes, I have two questions. One, Matt, I think in his last question answered it. So this 114 will roll forward and indeed could be combined with the minimum of 10% next year or whatever the total amount is. And that would be, as I understand you, Matt, in a separate allocated fund that could only be used for open space.
Correct.
Or
Okay.
recreation.
Or recreation, yes.
Sorry, yes, that's correct.
All right, my second question was, I thought I was keeping up with it, but I somehow didn't keep up with it. Can anybody bring me up to speed of what the current status is of the state's award of either the surplus, which I saw didn't make the budget, but I don't know what the end game for that really was, and whether has anybody seen whether the actual real estate numbers have gone up or down?
It went down. Yes.
Yeah, I don't have any more update other than collections are very soft so far this year. And I think Rob is right, they went down again. So we did have a projection from Stuart Saganor at the CP Coalition that the numbers were going to be, Bill, do you remember what it was? The match was going to be down below 20%, I think, right?
Right, and Kenny mentioned that on his, when he was there, presenting. I think the taxes, the revenue coming in from the city is gonna remain consistent because it's based on taxes. But the coalition match is gonna be lower. And I'm bringing that up now to see what the data bank is telling us.
Right.
Trust fund revenue.
Yep.
Okay,
And Harry, you were correct in noting that for the past several years, there's been the match directly from the CP fund. And then as the state has updated their fiscal year budget, they have allocated more money out of their budget, out of any budget surplus to the CP fund. They did not have that additional allocation this year. So that's what got us from the 20s to the 30s or 40% in the last couple of years. But right now that's not happening. So all that means that next year's pool, which this year's pool is just over $1 million, next year's pool might be as low as $700,000 or so.
and year to date, for the first 7 months of the fiscal year, it's down 34%. The state trust fund revenue.
Oh,
Thanks, Bill. Okey doke.
Matt, before you continue, Jennifer Lee has joined.
Hello, Jennifer Lee. Yep, I
Muted.
see that, and she's muted, but that's okay. I see her there, so
I
thank you.
want
for
to tell
the-
you, I've been on the phone in the car. I'm almost home and I'll jump on my computer.
Very good. So just to catch you up, we are just about to start revisiting our first cut draft awards for these year's applications. And we're just going through some general questions before we start considering each application.
No, I don't. Thank you.
Great. All right. Any other comments, questions before we start in line by line? All right, seeing none. Let's talk about the two Cape Ann Museum projects, the Cape Ann, the 14 Elm Street preservation and the Babson Alling House. Any further thoughts or questions beyond what we had? By the way, if we don't have to talk about these if there's nothing specific to bring up. If we all say, yeah, that's looked good the way it was, then we can just move on. So no comment is an okay response. All right, well, I'm hearing no comment on the first two, so on we go to the Bayview Cemetery Restoration Project. This is one of the projects that we do have an update on. Chris Maney from the Cemeteries Advisory Commission did submit a letter to us, which I forwarded to everybody, seeking to increase their request from $33,000 to $40,000 to cover the additional cost overruns that they're seeing. Comments? Mark?
So I went back and just looked at the video on this one back from June 20th, and are we funding a study or actual repair? Because it said the study starts in June of 23. So the study's already started. So we're funding like the repair, right? Is that
We're funding repair,
okay?
yes.
All right, and I saw the change to 40,000, the increase. I'm good.
Okay. Harry, you've got your hand up?
Yeah, I went back, I'm the liaison. I went back to meet with Christine, and I can't remember the fellow who's contracted to doing this. And the reason, I guess, she justified the reason for an increase in that my conversations with both her and the guy was supply chain issues. And indeed, as we all probably can see, some of the costs have, I won't say increased dramatically, but have increased. And that's the reason for her letter.
Thank you. Bill, got your hand up.
I do. I just have a comment, and it has to do with the letter. And I certainly understand why there is an increase to $8,000 because of cost of supplies and everything. But I was personally disappointed when I looked at the picture of the before and after, because I know they fixed the top of the gravestone, but it doesn't look like much in the engraving was done. And I just think about spending money in the future as funds get allocated. I think I think this is a real nice to do versus a have to do, like some of these other projects we have.
Mhm.
That's my comment.
Fair comment.
So we're thinking just stay with the 33, or
So, well, that's an interesting question. I mean, this was $100,000 project from 3 years ago, after we'd funded some fairly modest projects from the cemetery committee in prior years. So it's a lot of work. It is a lot of work. I mean, I think they're restoring a lot of that Bayview Cemetery. But I'm not sure what we're saying. Are we going to leave it? How do people feel about this one? Should we increase it to 40? Should we leave it at 33? Should we?
well, not being at the first meeting, I mean, I don't know what was deliberated on it, but I mean, it looked like you wanted to fully fund it. So I guess what, for a few $1,000s more, we have 74 left there, right? I mean, if the idea was to fully fund it, or 50% or whatever it was.
Yep.
Yeah.
So Matt, does that require a motion? I'll make a motion that we revise the 33 up to 40 for that.
No, it doesn't require a motion here.
Doesn't require a motion.
We're just doing planning here. That's the purpose of this meeting, is that when we come to the end of this tonight, that would be the slate of recommendations that we'll vote on next month. So no motion required. We'll get to those next month. Well, in that case, I'm going to put 40 in there.
Throw it in and see what happens, right?
Yeah, I don't think they have any other source of funding, so I would think if we
Yeah,
can do it,
yeah.
let's put the 40 in there.
Yeah, and don't forget this total funding, that's all in kind. I mean, that's an estimate of the value of their sweat equity. All right, onwards to Beauport and the chimney repairs. I'm fine with that the way it is. Anybody else? Bill, you got your hand raised.
Oh, no, I should have lowered it from
Mark.
Oh, okay. So this was an interesting one. Again, I went back and watched the video on this one. It felt to me like on the video when she was presenting that they needed a lot of study. There was still a lot of study, like Like they weren't quite sure. Remember, it wasn't all the chimneys. There was, I forget. I have to go back in my notes, but there was something about it. I'm okay with it. I just there was something about, and I made my note. I'm going back to my notes from when we first met, and I wrote down, need study ? And that's all. I just didn't understand if we're going right in for the repair or if this is a study. But certainly, I have no problem with the 20,000. I guess it's just I don't know that much about it. I guess I wanted to go there during the site visit, but I never made it.
So I think
Matt,
they
I can
need the
tell-
repair now, and there's also, they're finding there's other stuff that we're probably gonna be
Yeah.
hearing from them later, in the future. Because as they're looking to repair this, they're seeing that they've got more going on.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
So this 20,000 is for the repair that they want to do, but she mentioned that they're seeing other things that we'll probably hear from them in the future.
Got it. All right. I'm good.
Bill, did you have a comment?
Excuse me. Yes, I was the liaison with this, and from what my understanding, if I remember correctly, they were doing the study, Mark, this year to do the repairs of 2 chimneys next year.
Got it. That's what
So
I
they
thought.
are,
Yeah.
so they are doing a study, but the money that they're asking for is for chimney repair.
Okay.
My understanding as well. Okay, onwards, city-owned artworks preservation. I have no comment on that.
I did ask Zoe earlier while we were on the Zoom call if there was a memo of understanding that needed to be completed for this. And I guess it's being worked on.
Correct.
Were they getting ARPA money?
They are not, to my understanding.
My
Just to
notes-
remind you, the city budget is awarding them an enormous $4,000 this year, so.
Oh, geez.
In my notes, yeah, I have a note here that they were getting ARPA money from back when they presented. And there was a $20,000 assessment and $130,000 conservation, which was the 150. And then there was like a timing, if the timing, so if everything's good there, I'm good.
Okay, Hammond Castle, Oceanside exterior renovation. We're giving them about exactly half of their request.
And I saw their memo from a while ago that they had fixed up their timing, right? There was a timing issue initially, right?
Correct.
Right. Yeah, okay, that's all good.
Okay. Manship,
I'm good with that.
yep, I'm fine with it as is.
I did
Alright.
visit it for the first time. It is an impressive little place there.
Yeah, they're very methodical and well thought. And I think they've come a long way since last year when, well, they've come a long way in general, but they listened carefully and understood our process, which was very helpful to us. All right then, Sargent House. So this is the second one that we have additional information on, and I just forwarded all of you the email that we received from Jeremy Melvin at Sargent about 5 minutes before this meeting, so you may not have read it.
Yeah, they already found rot, right? Is the summary there?
Yeah, so I can read that since you hadn't seen it. It's very short. As part of addressing the issues with the east facade of the house, we anticipate several clapboards and potentially other trim pieces will need to be replaced due to rot. Until the condition of the failing paint is fully assessed, we will not know the complete extent of the repair work required. We also anticipate some repair will need to be done where a firebox and related electrical conduit was recently removed, which has occurred since the application presentation. So that's the new information we have. The issue that we had to consider was that painting projects relative to the CPA statute is defined as maintenance and is therefore not eligible for community preservation funds. A historic preservation project needs to be for restoration or rehabilitation. And the way that Stuart Saganor at the CP Coalition described it to us was that it needs to be for work that if it's not done, further damage will be caused to the resource. So so that's the overall. My personal committee member opinion is I'm comfortable awarding this at $8,000. I think we can still consider it as eligible. If there's a decent amount of disagreement on this one, then we should probably vote on it, just review the eligibility question. But that's what this one rests on. Mark, you've got your hand up.
So yeah, I agree. Is it the language in the application need to change so it basically doesn't say that they're painting? Then, I mean, if they came to us and said we need $8,000 to fix rot and all that other stuff, we'd probably say yes.
We can add their email to their file, and I don't think we have to specifically change what's in the neighborly application, but we do need to add their email to their official file.
So if he said repair and paint, would that get him over the hurdle?
I believe it would.
Yeah.
Sorry.
You know, so for me, I'm the contact here. I had a lengthy conversation with him, and they're not asking for more money. They are assessing, and they do expect. The way he wrote the letter, I think it says we anticipate, and I don't know if that was worded strongly enough, as opposed to saying we will be repairing at least a couple of clapboards and the electric box. So I don't know how picky we have to be. And, you know, I just want to make sure that we have, assuming we go forward with giving them the $8,000, that we have enough, you know, in the bin here to justify it. And I mean, I do think it's justified. I mean, I do think there's rotted boards, they're going to repair them, but just the wording of his letter did not, it just made me question the word anticipate. I wished he had used something stronger than that.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody has any thoughts on that. I mean, maybe it doesn't, maybe that's just a picky uni thing and we don't have to worry about it, which is fine.
Well, I think it's relevant and valid. I think at the end of the day, we have to make a recommendation to the city council. If we as a committee aren't comfortable with whether this is eligible or not, then this is the time to discuss that and address it. I personally, as I said, I'm comfortable that this satisfies the requirement for restoration and rehabilitation, and is not just a maintenance project. So that's how I feel about it. Bill, hand up.
Just question on, you know, whether do we say paint or not? And if we award them 8,000 and and the repairs to the wood and the electrical box came up to 4,000, that's we would be fine there. It would cover their expense and we wouldn't be spending anything more in the so-called maintenance category.
Right. So I'll answer that and then I'll recognize a couple other hands up. So when we make a recommendation and the city council makes an award, that's how much money that they have available to use on their historic preservation project. If that's going to cost them more, then they've got to figure out where the rest of the money comes from.
Correct.
And they may come back to us, they may fundraise for that, but you know, the award requested is $8,000. They may anticipate additional expenses, but they haven't told us about that and they haven't requested anything more. So the only question we have in front of us is whether we award them $8,000 or not. Harry's hand up is first and then Jennifer Lee. Harry?
Well, not to start a sentence with I, but many years ago, I worked a summer or two as a house painter, repairer, and so on. And this seems like a slam dunk to me. When you do old buildings, of course, and you have to repair cupboards, you don't put them up bare, you gotta paint them once you put them up. And there's always rot, no matter, and particularly if the building is over 50 years old, there's always some sort of rot. So I feel very comfortable. If you want to ask them to change the wording of it, I mean, that if it gives anybody, if that makes anybody feel a little better, that's fine with me, but I'm fine with almost the way it is.
Thanks, Harry. Jennifer Lee.
Same with me. If they find anything that needs to be repaired, it must be painted. That's part of doing the repair. That's part of the maintenance and replacing rot, is then they will have to paint it.
Yeah. By the way, we painted our house last year, and some of you know where I live. It's an old historic house, but it's in really good shape. And I wouldn't say that any of that was a rehabilitation or restoration work. Now, my neighbor, the American Legion, when that ever gets addressed, that's going to have a lot of repair and rehabilitation work in it. So I think just as using those as examples, there's a pretty clear line here. And that's why I think we, at least Harry, Jennifer Lee, and I all agree based on the building that we know and Jeremy's letter, I'm comfortable with it. Harry, you got something else, or is your hand just still up?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I should have put it
No
down.
problem. Anybody else? Should we, if we want to, if we're all comfortable with this as being eligible, then I think we can move along to the next one.
I'm okay.
Right. Zoe, we should get his email into the application as an attached file. Can you take care of that, or do you need some help from someone else?
Yeah, I can take care of that.
Great, thank you. Alrighty.
Again, just to further my knowledge a little bit here on this, is what would be the worst case scenario here if we approved it? I mean, there's no police coming to say.
Yeah, the worst case scenario is that some watchdog organization disagrees with the assessment that we just made, and holds us and comes and raises a lawsuit or something of that nature to say we disagree, you're spending civic money frivolously.
Understood.
Never happened to us, but it has happened to some awards that have been made by other communities. Not this small though, so. All right.
Over it.
Yeah, on to the Saunders house. Request 125, we've got 100 in. Comments?
Yep.
Jane, you've
I
got a
have one.
comment.
Yep. I talked to Jenny Benedict, and I just wanted she is not asking for more money than we might be allocating, but she did see the recording of our last meeting. And I just wanted to clarify a few things that we talked about last time. One is that the Saunders House is not allowed to solicit donations from any individuals because they have an agreement with the city that while the library is doing its capital campaign for the renovation, that the Saunders House doesn't get any part of that or participate in that at all. So there are other sources of funding. They literally cannot fundraise in the community. Their other sources of fundings are, state grants or other types of grants.
Got it.
And then the other point that I just wanted to clarify was, I think there were some comments about, I just remember comments about bathrooms or something, like, can we reuse, buy used things so that the expense is less?
I said,
Oh, did you? Yeah.
I said that I didn't understand why they didn't try to get in-kind donations rather than paying
Right.
cash.
And part of that is because with a historic building, when you're doing a restoration or that you have to be, this is because I'm married to my husband, Bill Remsen, who is a historic preservation architect, and I hear about it all the time at dinner. You have to be super careful with all of the types of, plumbing fixtures, details, blah, 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 moldings, what have you. It needs to be as historically correct as possible. And, if you're getting grants from the state because you're doing a historic project, it all has to qualify for that stuff.
But a handicap bathroom, how can that be historic?
I don't know the specifics of how to answer that question, but I do understand that, you know, it has to be very specific.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it doesn't, yeah, to your point, Jane, and to your question, Jennifer Lee, for bathroom, it doesn't really apply. I mean, there are modern requirements that zoning requires of us, and
Sure.
zoning's not the right word.
Building.
Yeah,
Inspection,
building
yeah.
requirements, so, those can be pursued. So I think it's a reasonable question, you know, with something like a bathroom. It doesn't make me want to change our award recommendation.
No, I don't,
No.
that's fine. I just
No.
wanted to get that on the record.
Me too.
Great,
I'm okay.
all right, onwards. Whistle Stop Apartments.
Yes, I have an update on that. So Bill told me that, you know, we spoke and I think I misunderstood what he said because he said we're all set at the ZBA, but I dug further into that. And this is what he says. Yeah, he says they closed the hearing at the ZBA meeting and the 5-panel ZBA board all voiced their unanimous approval for the project, but the formal vote is tomorrow. Just FYI.
Got it.
On
Thank
the
you.
ZBA.
Mark.
So continuing with the timing theme, I guess, are we gonna be okay there? Like, they were gonna start in November, right? Of this year? Is that,
Groundbreaking.
yeah,
I don't think I don't think that timing will be a problem with this one because it's a pretty large project and pretty much any of the work that they do is going to be eligible for our $75,000. They can't submit an invoice for any work that's done until it's work after we get an agreement with them, which would be March of next year. But they'll still be working in March of next year. So I don't think that's going to be a problem.
yeah, no, this was a
I'll-
good, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, no, go ahead, Mark.
This was a good project and I follow all the discussion from the last meeting on the video. There was a lot of good talk about it and stuff. I guess it's more of a hope, not a requirement, but I almost hoped that the money would sort of go to some feature on it or something versus just, you know, sheetrock and 2x4s like it, but that's, we can't, you know, mandate what they use the money for, but it, you know, it's such a large project and $75,000 is, and we're supporting it and all that. It's just be nice if it went to something, but that we could say, yeah,
mean,
that was
yeah,
that.
what
Right?
He's already underwater, like on
Yeah.
lawyers' fees and stuff. So
Yeah.
sadly, that's
Yeah.
probably, you know,
Jennifer
whatever.
Lee.
It's a hope, not a, you know, it's
Yeah.
it's a hope.
Well, Mark, the way I looked at this is we're really helping to fund the 8 apartment units that are gonna be affordable.
Right, the affordable units, yeah, versus the market rate ones. Yeah, all good.
Great, thanks. Jennifer Lee, you've got your hand up.
Well, about that, I don't know, maybe that particular amount of money could be used as part of the landscaping or something that makes it visible.
Yeah, but we can't.
But
I mean,
I agree that,
yeah.
no, we can't technically, but he could say when the
Right.
time comes that that's what he used our money for. No, but I agree, it specifically goes to the 8 units that are low income.
I think Bill is also quite disappointed that it's only 75,000. But it's hard to justify raising it too much more since he's getting a loan for the rest. But
Yeah.
they're putting that comment in there as well to go on the record.
Thank you. Harry, your hand is up.
Well, my recollection of the discussion was that he indicated, I don't want to say that the money wasn't important, but the token of the 75 showing support for this sort of housing project was what I thought meant a lot to both the project and to him.
Yeah,
I think it matters more when, like for 67 Middle Street, for example, they're getting other grants and stuff that where they have to prove that they have the support of the community. Since Bill is doing this all on his own, it's a little different. He just needs as much money as he can get because he has to borrow the rest and pay interest on it. So.
Jennifer Lee.
Is there 25,000 we could add?
It's a fair question. I personally, I'm a little uncomfortable with having the surplus number as low as we already have it.
Yeah.
If in case we have an off cycle from somebody that needs emergency work. But it's not unprecedented. The cities and towns do award virtually their entire fund in some years, so not against it. Mark.
yeah, so that's what I was kind of alluding to earlier with the reserve is, so you're right, if we had no surplus, our only reserve would sort of be in the open space and recreation. So we have, 50% shot that if somebody asked for an off cycle and it happened to be open space and recreation, that we're covered, but we wouldn't be covered for anything else.
Mhm.
Right.
So what's the strategy behind being covered on the off cycle? Because it seems to me that if people really need the money, they would, conform with the cycle.
So I always use a real example that we had. One of the first projects that the Hammond Museum did with CPC funds was to repair the clerestory, giant skylight windows over the middle of the church, the castle. And when they did that, we gave them an award of, I forget what the amount was. They started the work in late fall, early winter. And then when they got into it, they found a whole section of severely rotted infrastructure below the windows that was going to cost a lot more money to fix. And they had to fix it quickly because otherwise it was going to be left open during the winter months. And we had reserves. They came to us for an off-cycle application and we were able to get those funds approved and to them well before waiting for another annual cycle from us. So that's the example you'd want to use it for.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm for it. If anybody wants to raise the issue of increasing the amount of the Whistle Stop grant, we can do that. And we just need to know that there's more than a couple people that want to do that. I'm fine leaving it where it is.
I'd be in favor of putting it up to 100,000, but.
Okay. Anybody else?
Well, not what I guess I would probably be okay with 100 as well, either way. But is there any other? Speaking of going back to the overall budget, is there any projects that are going to bring in money from recalled projects or excess, or is that already baked in here?
That's already baked in. In our administrative updates topic after this, we'll review. Zoe just got us an updated status on open projects, and I don't see very many that are going to have funds rescinded to us.
Okay.
So I don't think that will be there.
Okay.
Maybe when we get to Action Inc., we could revisit that number. And if we could reduce it at all, we could add it to the 50R Maplewood.
Well, why don't we kind of take that all right now? I think that's a valid approach. So we've got these 3 housing projects down here, Whistle Stop, the Patillo Building, and Action. I think what you're suggesting, Jane, is maybe move this 75 to 100 and move Action's 150 down to 125.
I am, or something like that, because we've done, I don't know what percentage 75 is for 250. I can't do it that fast, but we've reduced Action Inc. by 25%. We've reduced the Y Patillo's building by 50%, and we've reduced 50R Maplewood by a lot more than that.
Right.
75 is about 30, it's less than 30%.
Yeah,
Well, I'm just gonna plug numbers in here. That goes up 25 and this comes down 25. The surplus is the same. I'm okay with that.
I have an issue with that.
Go ahead, Bill.
I actually had, for Bill Wheat anyways, I had 100,000 from the get-go. So moving him up to 100 is fine. I think if I recall our discussion, one of our concerns was, and the reason why we kept it at 75, I recall from our last discussion, was he's building all these units, only 8 are gonna be affordable. The other ones are gonna be market driven, although they will be studios, so he can't get top dollar for those. So I thought, when we discussed it, we were talking more about investing into a private developer. So I have no problem giving them 100, but I look at the Action Inc. situation as going to a different class of people. People who are in financial need that there's no, they're, with rental, assistance and mortgage assistance and financial difficulty. So it's actually going after another section of affordable housing.
so you feel like you're getting more bang for your buck really with the Action Inc. thing? Is that what you're reaching more people and helping more?
Yes, I think we're helping more people, but more importantly, Jane, I think we're helping a different aspect of the community. Rather than 8 or 6 affordable units.
Yep.
So I'm not opposed to giving Bill 100, but I am opposed to taking it from Action Inc.
Interesting. Okay.
And
I feel-
if you look at if you're going to take money from somewhere, again, I'm in favor of giving 100 to the Y, but that's a $12 million project. They're the ones who really need to show community support, and they're going to get grant funding from all kinds of places. So maybe you take it from the Y.
Good points. Carrie, your hand is up.
So I pretty much agree with what Bill's saying, except I wouldn't want to take it from the Y, because I think that we had decided even last year that 100,000 is kind of the benchmark that really looks as though it's community support.
Yeah.
I have no problem. I too, in my model, I had him up at 100,000, but I would have a real problem taking more money away from Action for pretty much the reasons that Bill has said. And I also believe that he's got the money, so I don't feel like it's a dire situation for him. So I don't, even though, yes, I originally had put him in at 100,000, I'm okay with him having the 75 because he is funded. And yeah, I would hate to see us taking money away from Action Inc.
Well, I'm gonna put Action Inc.'s money back in. That reduces our surplus to $42,000. In addition to, I mean, that's again, non-open space or recreation. So that's a small number, but in my example of the Hammond Castle project, they needed, I think, $32,000 when that emergency item came up. So it's not unprecedented. It's not irresponsible to consider it that way. Harry, your hand is up.
Well, if you take the 42,000 now and the 114, that leaves us with essentially 17% reserve, which isn't bad in my view. I mean, even though some of it is actually dedicated,
Yeah.
I don't feel uncomfortable with that. The only other compromise would be to say lower the Y 10,000 and Action 15,000 if you felt that was the way you wanted to go.
Yeah, I don't feel that strongly about it. That's kind of the conservative funding thing in me. I have no problem leaving it the way they are. And again, we don't have to vote on this tonight. These, if there's final adjustments to be made when we vote, we can do that. But I'm fine leaving them this way and leaving the surplus at 42.
Great. I won't be here next time for the voting, so go 50R Maplewood.
Okay.
Just remember in your minds what I said tonight, so to help you keep it at
Very
100.
good.
And thank you for considering it.
Jennifer Lee.
I agree with you completely, Jane, so I'll watch out for it.
Okay, great.
All right. So that brings us to the Affordable Housing Trust. At our last meeting, Bill and I were going to try to answer the questions that you see there. Bill, I'll go first, because I did have a couple of back and forths. They do have new members. Mike Luster, who was our primary liaison and who Carrie and I met with, is no longer on the Housing Trust. I believe I updated you all on this. I did send them all, I sent an email to all of the members of the AHT that I had emails for, letting them know after our last meeting that our current plan was not to award their grant request. I heard nothing back from anybody. I also sent, I copied that to Jill Cahill and the mayor, and just let them know that right now we're not planning on funding the AHT grant, and heard nothing from them either. This stays at 0 unless anybody else has any opinions on it, but that's what we said last time, and I had no new information. Bill, did you find anything out about any ARPA funding going to the Housing Trust?
At this point in time, nothing has gone over to them, but they're slated to get the 1.5 million to do something with.
Yeah, and it's funny because after I had this exchange of emails with no replies, I did talk with one member, Bob Gillis, who's one of the new members, and when I sent my note, Bob immediately commented back and said, this is important, we should consider it, and nothing. So whether they get ARPA money or not, I don't think we can give them any of our money until we get further down the road in our discussions with them. So maybe next year. All right. Well,
Okay.
then, unless there's anything further here at our September 18th meeting, this is the slate of recommendations that we will vote on. Again, it can change when we get to that meeting if, we've got 3 weeks between now and then. But that right now, this is what we'll be looking at. Harry, your hand is up.
Yeah, if we're closed with business and you're going to take other business, I'll jump in then, but I didn't want to interrupt you.
Okay, great, because that's where we're moving now. So administrative updates. I only have one, but that could be a few minutes. So Harry, if you'd like to bring something up, now's the time.
Yeah, well, I've been looking around at other CPCs in other towns, and we sort of stubbed our toe a little bit at the beginning when we were considering eligibility, and many of the applications, in fact, several of them weren't filled out properly. And what I've discovered is in several towns, the community development director, or in this case, our wonderful participant, Zoe, reviews in these towns as part of their job description, reviews the applications before they go to the CPC. So my thought is, I was wondering if we could approach Zoe or the community development to see if that would be possible, because I thought it would, we practically lost the whole meeting because of the idea that many of these people hadn't filled it out correctly. Some of them were just small mistakes, some of them were larger. So that's one suggestion I have.
Okay. So on that subject, I'll make a couple of comments and then we can open it up to the committee. We solicited applications, they come in. Zoe does see them before we see them. And I'm not sure, Zoe, you can, actually, Zoe, if you wouldn't mind, tell us the process that goes on. Do you have to kind of change its status so that we can see it?
Yeah, so they apply and I have to add all of you on it for you to be able to see it, but they fill out a little form in the beginning just to make sure they're eligible to even fill out the application firstly, and then once the committee deems it eligible, then they can fill out the rest of the application.
Okay, so I think what Harry's saying then is that so right now you don't do any review of it yourself to see that it's eligible or that they have submitted all the information that the eligibility application requires. You just see that it's in.
Yeah.
And then flip the switch so that we can see it.
Hmm.
Got it. Okay.
So as a follow-up to that, Matt, I know that Zoe gives a briefing to anyone who wants to listen to her. But again, I don't know whether she's the one who's trained in this. And some of these people wouldn't know really how to fill out an application. So that's my thought, that perhaps we could work on that to improve the rate of failed eligibility applications at the beginning of the process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one other comment, if I may. So we had 20 applications here. I'm just gonna, you guys can still see my screen?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay. So these are so we had 19 applications. And I guess I just wanted to see if this is what you're referring to, Harry, that we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that I think we deemed ineligible. Are these 5 that you're referring to?
Well, I think that we deemed them eligible for the time being, and even though we had a deadline, I think we decided to go back and consult with these people and bring them into the fold.
Mm-hmm.
And that took up a great deal of time, I thought, and unnecessary time in my view. So,
got it. So the alternative would be that, and I'm just talking through this. The alternative you're suggesting is that somebody in the city, whether it's Zoe or Greg Catamatore or somebody else, does the eligibility review of these applications before they come to us.
yes, that's what I'm suggesting, that it's done in several other cities and towns that do this. And I never followed up to find out whether it worked or not, but I do know that the job description of people in the community development, I think, and where I did look at this, part of the job description was to review and correct, or review and I think it was review and correct and place the applications in proper form.
Got it. Interesting. The statute in laying out what a community preservation committee has to do specifically says that it's part of our job to deem whether applications are eligible. So I don't think that eliminates that responsibility from us. Are you seeing it as, and other towns perhaps, as is this one more review of it?
No, I see it as a precursor to when it comes to us, we wouldn't be faced with 20%, 25% of the applications deemed ineligible, have a long discussions about it. Maybe if it came to us and somehow if we had this possibility employed, what would come to us might be very minor situations that would help us move these applications along a fast track, where we wouldn't get into long discussions about their inability to fill out the application properly.
Got it. Comments, other committee members? Mark?
Yeah, I mean, how can we help people succeed better, right? I mean, it's kind of what I'm thinking, right? Is there, are people accessing and sourcing the eligibility documents prior to filling them out? Or are they just filling them out and that's the 20%, we're getting people who don't even bother reading the CPC stuff, right? So how can we help people fill them out better? Could we have in that system, could there be a sample document or something in terms of what to put and where to put? Because I've read these over the last couple of years too. People put the same thing in different places and forget the eligibility thing. People just kind of put stuff all over the place, like they put the whole explanation up in the summary, and they've gotten messy, right? So,
perhaps even a little checklist, some kind of a checklist.
Right. How can we help people, right? Help people succeed a little bit on that, but we're always going to have some little audit thing or something, I think.
I feel like this could potentially put a lot on the administrative end of this that, you know, I'm not sure how much is allocated for us, but I would hate to stress that out further than it is, or further than we can actually afford, number one. But I like what Mark is saying, to attack it as how can we help people succeed? And I'm thinking that perhaps a comprehensive checklist could work. Or another thought is maybe where we divide up the projects after eligibility, maybe we do that as the applications come in. And, you know, as we're reading them, either we can each be responsible for different projects, or conversely, without having to really divvy up the projects, if we are all reading them and we send, we see something off, you know, maybe then we can send it to Zoe as this person needs to, you know, to really rethink this.
Yeah, I
know.
lost all my projects because of an eligibility.
Yeah, right.
So we divvied up the projects and then I lost them all.
Yeah. Yeah.
So one more comment. It's not to be a nitpicker, but I thought it was my understanding that part of the money that comes, part of the $1 million, a certain amount of that is allocated to the Community Development Department for administration. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So I'm not trying to put the burden on anybody, but it would certainly, part of that administration fee, it would seem to me, could be diverted to either checklist or drawing this up, or somehow a quick review before it comes to us.
Yeah.
I mean, do we know how close we come to what's allocated to us each year? Is it close, or maybe it's not? To Harry's point, you know, maybe it's not that close and it is something that can be done.
I think the city budgets 5% of our annual CPA income to the administrative expense side. So there's a fair amount of CPC money going to the city. It doesn't. By the way, Zoe, I don't mean to speak of you in the third person like you're not here, but it doesn't. I probably doesn't pay everything that Zoe does, and Zoe does a lot of other stuff other than CPC. But I want to get back, I wouldn't, before we get too much of allocation of cost and relative amount of administrative support that we get, I'd just like to woodshed what would have happened this year on this, because I'm not sure I agree with Harry on this. Look at these 5 applications. The Stage 4 Park Cannon off-cycle one was submitted by Dave Dow when we'd said already that the Stage 4 Park, the $1 million grant wasn't going to be considered, and didn't have all of the application stuff you need. So could Zoe or Greg have told Dave Dow that versus us? Maybe. Not sure that would be a position I'd want to put Zoe in, but maybe Greg could do it. The Stage 4 Park rehabilitation additional expense, that got deemed ineligible because it didn't have an MOU in place yet. And that was a new stipulation that came up through the city's general counsel. The tennis court restoration one was one that somebody could have figured out. But again, I kind of consider us, the committee, to be the experts on this. So let's say that Zoe or Greg said, oh yeah, that's not eligible. Do they then do the back and forth on that project before we even see it? I don't want that to happen. I'd like to know about it if somebody's applying for it. So my 2 cents, Mark and Zoe have their hands up. Mark, you can go first.
I was just thinking, like, last off season, we spent a long time polishing up the plan because it hadn't been touched in many years. Maybe this off cycle, we can just peek at Neighborly and see if there's anything we can do with, you know, tutorial or just making it at least so the applications are filled out. Not so much the eligibility, but maybe we can do something in the off season to look at the Neighborly stuff. My applicant last year on the Nate Ross thing, he struggled through the whole thing. You know, what section do I put this in? What section do I, you know, and I was working with them offline to get all that stuff done last year. And it should be easier, right? It should be an easier form to fill out. So it's clear.
Yeah,
to
perhaps.
us. And,
I will say also that was the West Gloucester Church, right?
No, I think that was the baseball field.
the
Nate Ross.
baseball field.
Oh, right. Got it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
You know,
Right.
that was, but even simple thing like that was just hard to it's hard to navigate some of the terms and things. And anyway, if we can do something in off, off season to peek at that, right? Maybe.
Fair
we can do
point.
that.
Yep. Zoe,
I was just gonna say, so I was the one with the Canon. I had to explain to them that it wasn't eligible, and I misspoke a little bit earlier. I definitely review the projects when they come in, and I also talk to Jamie about them. So I like look at to make sure everything's in all the documents and review it. But I definitely think I can try to do more things just because Neighborly is a little bit tricky for people to use. I know most organizations or some actually hire people to fill out their application. I know YMCA did. So maybe I could do some videos just to help out.
great. Good suggestion. Thank you. Jennifer Lee.
That's kind of what I was going to address, that there could be the offer of assistance for people who don't have departments or haven't hired specialists. There could be, if you are having trouble with this application, you can contact so-and-so.
Yeah.
And that I like the suggestion that Zoe could be available to do that. Not our work, which we have to deem whether it is eligible. But there is some of I'm terrible with applications myself. I don't know that I could fill out this application myself. And I just think that we could look for a way to help, specifically by saying, if you need help, contact.
Yep.
Okay.
So couple of other thoughts here. Can you guys see this is our page on the city website?
Yes.
Okay, great. So this is one place it can be addressed. The buried deep down here is helpful links for potential CPA project applicants. Maybe this should go higher. And maybe this link should be the first one, which gets to this page.
Yeah.
And this is a pretty good page. I think if you've never applied for CPA funds, this is the best single resource that I think tells people whether your project is eligible or not. So I think what I'm hearing is two things. One is can the community development department help improve these applications before they get to us for consideration? And two, can we do that as well? It's all an effort to get these applications to be of higher quality before they get to us. We're still going to have to decide whether something's eligible or not. And Harry, I don't think we can eliminate this kind of work, but I think your point is that, a couple of these things should have been caught before they got a whole lot of, they should have been helped to be better applications, better information, and perhaps said, hey, wait, you've got to change this or else it's just not going to fly.
Well, the only comment I have there is listening to everybody. It's certainly helpful. I don't know whether people actually think that they can call Zoe and have her help them through that. I don't know if that's part of her job description, but it would seem to me that rather going to a member of the CPC committee, and just like Jennifer said, I don't know if I could help them.
Yeah, you're right. So I would suggest a couple things. One, Zoe, if you can talk with Greg about taking a larger role when we get to eligibility next year, and if you guys want to toss that around, I think that would be helpful. And you guys can define a little bit of what that is, but I think the main thing is I think that it would be great if we could find a process where these applications are higher quality than they have been. Part of that might be reviewing how Neighborly works and making it work better for us. Part of it might be on this web page, putting something higher up that says CPA applicants. Maybe take this section that's down at the bottom, helpful links for potential, maybe that goes at the top. And one of the first things is, got questions, contact the community development department, and has a link that ends up in an email to you or something like that. So it's maybe a little bit more guidance from the community development group, and a little bit better organization of our website, and making more resources available to applicants. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Okay. So can we give you a to-do to talk about that with Greg when you have a chance? And,
Yep.
and Jamie,
Yeah.
Jamie's hand is still in this, and she probably knows the statute better than anybody in the city right now.
Mhm.
Great. Thank you. Good, Harry?
Yes, and I just would add one more observation since we're in other business. I've been on the committee now almost 2 years, and I haven't met everybody. I know some people personally. Are we ever going to meet in person, or is this, I don't mind this Zoom, but I didn't know whether, I know other committees meet at the harbor master's office and and do that. I don't know if anybody felt that way, but like the September 18th meeting, when it comes down to really figuring out who's going to get what or the vote, I didn't know whether there was a need to get together for that.
Right. Not a need, but I think a desire on some people's parts. And we haven't talked about it for a while. Jennifer Lee.
I would like to meet in person.
Yeah. Let's see, Mark.
So I remember going to the harbor master's office when our last year's projects were going through budget and finance. And that was sort of a welcoming thing. I thought maybe there'd be a few more people there, but I think other commitments, I think I was a couple of times the only one there, but I think a mix might be good. I mean, I do agree we should meet in person, but I think when we had this discussion last year, we felt like with all these presentations and all these spreadsheets and back and forth on all these spreadsheets, that we could really get stuff done remotely. But either way, if it's hybrid, I have a change of heart, I guess. And last year I was all into just we could do this faster and better, switching screens and online, but
Yeah.
maybe things are better.
My 2 cents, I'd love to meet in person. I'm the host. I don't know if you guys can see it, but right now we're the only participants in this meeting. There's nobody else, and there rarely is. So I don't think we're gaining more of the public. We're making it easier for ourselves to make these meetings.
Right.
But I think it would be, I think it would be good to meet in person again. And I think that sharing screens and all that, I mean, you can hook up to a big screen in whatever conference room we're in and be able to see that stuff. So I don't think that's as much of really the benefit for us is that it's easy for us to get to when it's online. But I think meeting in person would be great. And one other point, I don't think we could do hybrid. I think right now the city reserves, Zoe, you might know about this. The city reserves hybrid meetings for only, groups that are actually passing legislation, I think. So it's like the city council and its subcommittees and maybe zoning, I'm not sure, but they may not be able to give us a hybrid one. Anybody else on meeting in person?
I'm good either way.
I like the Zoom personally.
Okie doke. Well, I'm happy to look into whether hybrid is an option for us. That may have changed. I mean, I haven't asked any of those questions in a long time.
I think there's a hybrid setup wherever the city council has been meeting.
Yeah, there is.
That room, which I don't know where it is, but
Yeah, and I know when they got that set up, Jane, that they were limiting that's availability to just
that's what you said before.
Yeah. All right,
Planning board is still totally Zoom, so I have nothing to offer you there. Sorry.
Right. I'll talk to Pam, Toby, who usually knows most about what's going on with committees.
Just as a comment, my wife is on the City Arts Committee, and they've been meeting in person at the harbor master's office and do a hybrid for people who can't make it there.
Oh, that's good
Last-
news. So thank you, Harry.
Yeah,
Matt, the screen is there at the Harbor Masters at that conference room. You could just hook up your computer, any one of our computers to
Yes.
it.
I know. Well, let's look into it. If we can do hybrid, I would love to do hybrid, even next month if that's available. But I will look into it and report back to you guys.
Right.
All right. So the only other piece of administrative updates is, let's see, I have to do a screen share thing here. Let's see, is to look at this updated project spreadsheet. Let's see, how do I do this? You can't see my spreadsheet right now, can you?
Yep.
Yeah.
You mean the project, the one in really small print?
No.
We
have-
see CPC projects, the
Yeah,
one we've
hold
been
on.
working on.
I'm gonna stop the share and then reshare it. It'll only take a second.
Yeah, we were looking at the 23
Yep.
project, Matt.
Yep, here we go. This one's much less readable, so there you go.
wow.
Yeah, sorry about this. I'll try to zoom it up a little bit.
I mean, you did send that out to us, I think, Matt, in the agenda, right?
I don't
No?
think I did.
Oh,
Okay, this is a little better. Okay, the last time we looked at this was in January. And updated a bunch of projects. This lists all of our open projects that have not spent all their money or have not closed out their projects. So these ones at the bottom are the ones that Zoe just confirmed. These are all closed. So this is the Camp Spindrift at the North Shore Y project. That was a $42,000 project. The first Babson Ailing House grant, that's fully closed. The Saunders House stabilization, the Ravenswood parking project, I don't think that was officially closed when we were there last time. This was the 2022 action rental assistance, and then the archways at Hammond Museum. And finally, the Magnolia Library project, which was just last year, and they finished that one. So these are all done. And what's left up here is projects that are almost done or are maybe just getting underway. So, and I'm sorry about this back and forth. The only one that I thought was kind of interesting was this one. Zoe, this is the $100,000 grant from 2019 that went to Young Legends. So that one is closed, but is that it's not off of our list because you don't, or can we take that off our list?
You could, we're just waiting till the phase 2 is done just to get the final report of everything, but
Sure.
yeah, you can think of it as complete and closed.
Okay, great. And then this one is fixing, this was bathrooms and something else at the Fitzhenry Lane House that was awarded in 2020. That's 3 years ago now, and they've never started it. Mike has said to me once or twice that they're on the verge of starting it, and that's been that way forever. Do you have any more information on that other than this, Zoe?
Yes, so this was extended, so I'm not sure if they will be able to finish it by December 31st of this year, but all I know is that they had a proposal done from an architect, and that was in the amount of $4,500, but hasn't been paid. I haven't received any invoices yet.
Okay.
So it looks like they're starting it. I just don't know if it will be done by end of December.
This one just kind of irritates me, you guys. I don't like when somebody gets a grant from us and then they don't use it, no matter who it is. This is not a big project. It's not a small project either. It's $120,000, but I remember going through this with Mike. The original, it's already been extended once. It was originally expiring last December. And last summer, fall, I sent Mike a note and said, hey, you know, can we cancel this? And he said, no, we're going to get to it. Well, they haven't gotten to it. If we cancel it, that money comes back into historic preservation and it can be used for other projects. And he can certainly apply for this money again and get it again. So how does anybody else feel about this? This just might be me getting frustrated, but thoughts?
I'm fully in favor of that, Matt. I think after 3 years, honestly,
Mhm.
I mean, I wasn't here before, obviously, but I think there might be projects with greater need and they can apply again.
Right. I mean, we've just been wrestling with what to do with some historic preservation projects, and they would use the money this year.
Yeah, that might be the shot across the bow they need, you know? You
Maybe. I
start,
mean, they
start
get
the
old.
process of canceling it, right?
Right, right. Harry, your hand is up.
Well, in this business, I think there's two words that we have to pay attention to, and that's accountability and precedent. And if they're not accountable, they're setting a bad precedent. And we don't want that to be out there like that. So I would be in favor of what is it called? Rescinding the money?
Yes.
It doesn't have a natural expiration date, or they've applied for extensions every time.
Well,
And
it does. I mean, their expiration date is this coming December 31st. And we've agreed, it was previously last year, December 20 of 2022. We agreed in this committee last year to extend it by a year. So we could just say, we're not going to extend it again.
Have they asked?
Nope.
what happens if they do start the project before December 31st, but don't use all the money?
Well, if they get halfway through it and then we say we're pulling the rest of your funds, that probably would cause some issues for them. That's I'm personally happy saying, hey, heads up, Mike, we're not going to renew this year. So if you're not going to finish it, we're just going to get the money back and then we'll, you know, you can reapply later.
Yeah, and I would explain to him that you're going to, you know, this could have been used for somebody else. I
Yep.
think.
Yeah.
Yep. Agreed. Great.
So-
Zoe, if any invoices come through on this, let me know before you pay them.
Okay.
Thanks. Sorry, Harry, did you have more? Is your hand still up?
No. Sorry to lower.
No,
Forgot to
no
lower.
problem. Jennifer Lee.
I
Jennifer
like
Lee-
that. I like the heads up thing. I think that
Yeah,
a heads up now saying we want to let you know that if you haven't started and gotten to a certain place, give him, you know, if he just starts it and then going to walk away again, no good. But he
Yep.
has to be X amount done. Otherwise, we're pulling it.
right. Yep.
Thank you.
Uh,
Are you gonna give them that heads up, Matt?
I will do it. That's on my list of to-dos. Carrie, your hand is up.
Yeah, so does that money go back to historic or does it go into general?
That
Do we have
money,
to check and see where in 2020, was that part of like the threshold for
yeah,
10%?
that's a good question. My guess is that legally it could be put back into general if the remaining funds from that year were adequate to satisfy the 10%. My guess is that Kenny Costa would just say, it's too hard to figure out. We're just going to put it back into a historic bucket. But if we really wanted to pursue it, I'm sure we could go back to the 2020 grant year and see if they met their 10% without it.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Jennifer Lee.
But if it goes back into historic, then we could take some money out of historic and put it somewhere else.
Mhm. Yep.
Okay.
All right, that gets us out of the 2021s. So this is the Annisquam Village Church. That was a $15,000 grant. They've spent just under 13 and there's money left. Got an invoice a month ago, so I guess they're still open, Zoe, right?
Yep, they have a little over 2,000 left to spend.
So now we're talking, so these are, oh, by the way, I skipped over the YMCA. we know what that's going on. That's fine, and they don't expire until next year. But that's running along now, so we can talk about that one later. For all these ones that expire in 2020 at the end of this year, what we've done in the past is let them know that they're expiring, and to give us an update, because if they don't give us an update, then the money will be rescinded. That usually gets everybody's attention. And my guess is that these ones. Interesting. Okay, so they're at least they're reporting to us on this. Interesting. Nothing from the Gloucester Meeting House Foundation. That was a big award.
Yeah.
In many ways.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, these are still all open. Let's just go through them. That's the Meeting House open and hasn't spent anything. So these were all awarded. Hold on a second. Sorry. These are still ones that were awarded in 2021, which means that they first were available to get the money last spring of 2022. So nothing done there. For the paint factory study, they've done a little bit of work. Zoe, can you tell us any more about the report? I forget what they said.
I believe, yeah, so I've received a couple invoices from them. I know they have like 115K left. I believe they're gonna get all the work done very soon. I think they're working on it through like it's gonna be done, definitely done before
Okay,
December.
great, thanks. And then the adventure is going, so I think they'll probably finish too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Although the adventure's been out in the water all summer, right? When were they were gonna have to pull it up to do this work? Oh, no, sorry. This was the rudder work, not the second one that we did with them. That's down here. Okay. So
Should someone reach out to Meeting House?
yes, we should reach out to all of these whose contracts expire in 2023. These should all get reached out to. I'll coordinate that with Zoe.
Okay.
We should just send them a standard letter that says basically your contract is expiring. If you don't expect to be complete by the end of the year, you know, let us know if you'd like to apply for an extension and why you'd like that extension. Okay. And I'm not going to go through anything that is stuff we awarded last year because none of those expire until next year, unless anybody has any questions. So that's.
I had a question on the Action Inc. one.
Yeah.
I think you scrolled. So how are those allocations? Because that's like rental assistance and stuff, right? So how,
Right.
it's
right.
not it's not one project that start to finish. It's ongoing and stuff.
Right,
So how
and
does
you can see for that. So this is stuff that they just were able to apply for to access for the first time this spring, 6 months ago or so, and they've already spent $106,000. The way it happens is that they submit invoices to the Community Development Department to be paid. Correct, Zoe?
Yes.
Harry, you got your hand up.
Yeah, could you, I don't know if I have this in my file of paperwork. Could you send this copy to me so I could have it before the next meeting? And-
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, we update this once every 6 months or so. And I just asked Zoe to get these updates. I'm going to clean it up a little bit and then I'll send it to everybody. It's not a Google Doc like the other one. It's a Microsoft Excel spreadsheet. So hopefully you can read that.
Thank you.
Now I find this one kind of interesting in that the city-owned cemeteries haven't invoiced for anything yet for the work that they have been doing. This was the first of the 3 parts in Bayview. I can't remember what she said in her report either. Maybe I didn't read it. Zoe, do you remember? They are working up there, right?
Yeah, I just haven't received any invoices.
Yeah. Yeah, she told us in her presentation and showed us some pictures of what they're doing. So anyway, and that we know about this. There is an update on the Nate Ross Field. which just came in a couple of days ago, Zoe, or Mark, I can't remember who brought it up. Maybe you brought it up, Mark. But the baseball boosters are signing over project responsibility to the city, which gets the need for a memorandum of understanding out of the way. And I think the DPW is planning on getting to work on that soon. Like this, if not in September, then in October.
Yeah, it was definitely a fall project. It was tended to be fall last year, but
Right. Well, somebody dropped the ball, I think, on getting this official transfer of responsibility from the boosters over to the city, but that is getting done. That should be done real soon.
They're gonna assign a grant over to the boosters to the DPW, right?
Right. Yep. Okay. So, yeah, I don't know if anybody else wants to talk about anything else here. I will say I just saw scaffolding up on Our Lady of Good Voyage when I drove by it earlier today. So I think they're starting on that. Okay, so I'll send this off to everybody. The to-do that I have out of this is to work with Zoe to draft the letter that goes out to applicants who are expiring this December, and in particular let the city know in the Fitzhenry Lane project. That's the only one that is expiring this December that's been previously extended. So I'll write a specific note to Mike Hale on that. Okay.
Thank you, Matt.
Yep. Good. That's all I have for administrative updates. Anything from anybody else? Well then, we're on to the last item on our agenda, which is next meeting. Next meeting is scheduled for Monday, not Tuesday. Monday, September 18th. That is 3 weeks minus 1 day from now. And that meeting will be solely, unless something else comes up, the main purpose of that is to vote on these recommendations that we've just come up with. I'll send an updated list of what we just put in that spreadsheet with the final numbers for everybody. I'll send that to everybody too. So at that meeting, we will take formal votes, and that's what will be on that meeting. Anybody else? Any other points? Hearing none, I move that we adjourn this meeting of the Community Preservation Committee.
Second?
All in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
we have to do a
Say
roll.
nay.
Don't we have to-
Roll call vote,
roll
thank you.
call?
Bill,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Rob,
Yes.
Jane,
Yes.
Carrie,
Yes.
Harry,
Yes.
Jennifer Lee,
Yes.
Matt, yes, the meeting is adjourned. By the way, the need for a roll call vote on and even these things is because we meet remotely. So if we did meet in person, we wouldn't have to do that. A pleasure to virtually see everybody, and we'll see you in 3 weeks.
And
Thank
have
you.
a great Labor Day weekend, everyone.